What's going on, guys? I'm Lakota from Meyer Mediums, and this is vlog number 14. Well, I just turned 32 last week, feeling pretty good. Actually, if I'm going to be honest, it's finally dawned on me that I am closer to 40 now than I am 20, and that's kind of a wild feeling. And as I've been approaching the middle of my life, watching the sand swiftly drain to the bottom of the hourglass, I've been scrambling to try to finish things that I've always wanted to accomplish. Important things, the kind of things that you've got to tighten up before the cold embrace of death drags you off into the shadows of ever after, leaving behind the legacy that future generations will judge me by. So I wrote a kid's book. Now, I wrote and illustrated this book all on my iPad, so it's a little different than most of my work. All of the illustrations are digital, and it's a little cartoonier than my usual style, but I hope that you would find the book enchanting and will carry the morals of the story with you for the rest of your life. I didn't know how to go about marketing the book exactly, this being my first time and all, but I figured why not just read it and share the illustrations with my subscribers? So without further ado, this is Mr. Stevens' Magical Sing-Along Forest, written and illustrated by Lakota Meyer. Mr. Stevens' Magical Sing-Along Forest, written and illustrated by Lakota Meyer. It was a wonderfully pleasant day in the magic forest. All of the children were gathered around Mr. Stevens singing their favorite songs. It's a wonderful day out in the woods, so much to do and see. We'll chase butterflies and sing a song if you will come with me. All right, Mr. Stevens said as he pulled out his magical candy bowl. Who's ready for a snack? We are, the children yelled in unison. All right, but remember, children, everyone only gets one piece. Too much candy can hurt your teeth, and we don't want anyone losing a molar on our hike to the Big Balloon Mountains. The children all approached the candy bowl and took out one piece of candy each. That is, except for Timothy. While Mr. Stevens had his back turned, Timothy snuck 3 pieces of candy and hid them in his pockets. A short while later, as they were approaching the Big Balloon Mountains, Mr. Stevens stopped for a break. Okay, little ones, Mr. Stevens said, I'm wore out. Why don't we rest for a bit? As a matter of fact, Mr. Stevens said as he whipped out his wacky kazoo, who wants to sing a song about our woodland friends? Halfway through Mr. Stevens' song, Timothy poked Susie, a girl in the group that Timothy liked very much. Susie stopped singing and turned toward Timothy, who was motioning for her to join him behind some bushes. What is it? Susie asked as she joined Timothy behind the bushes. Did you find a rainbow pillar? Or perhaps a star flower? No, Timothy said as he pulled his candy stash from his pocket. I was wondering if you wanted another snack. Where did you get these? Susie asked as she glared at Timothy's Taffy Crunch, Whizdoodle Bar, and Splurt Buster. I took him when Mr. Stevens wasn't looking, replied Timothy. He can be pretty stingy when it comes to handing out treats. But that's not nice, said Susie. Oh, it's all right, said Timothy nonchalantly. He has a big bowl of candy. He won't even notice they're gone. No, scolded Susie. What you did is stealing, and it's wrong. You shouldn't take what doesn't belong to you. You have a lot of toys at home. What if someone came and took some of those? You wouldn't like that now, would you? Timothy pondered this for a moment. You're right. I wouldn't like it. I've never thought about it like that. I should return the candy to Mr. Stevens and apologize. It's only right to be honest about what I've done. The two of them walked back to the group. Timothy approached Mr. Stevens as he was finishing a song about squirrels dancing with woodchucks. What is it, Timothy? Mr. Stevens asked with his usual comforting smile. Well, sir, Timothy began, earlier, when you had your back turned, I snuck 3 pieces of candy. I realize now that was wrong of me, and I wanted to say that I was sorry and give them back to you. Timothy returned the candy to Mr. Stevens. Well, young man, Mr. Stevens said as he looked deep into Timothy's eyes, it takes a lot of bravery to admit when you've done something wrong, and I admire that. Mr. Stevens reached out to ruffle Timothy's hair, and the boy smiled, letting out a sigh of relief. "But," continued Mr. Stevens, with a grim look upon his face, "you broke the rules, Timothy, and what has been done cannot be undone." Mr. Stevens looked into the sky and shouted loudly 3 times in a language the children had never heard. "Belcam Chuknai, Shalud Bay, Kremnon!" Mr. Stevens turned from the startled and confused child and said, "The forest shall judge the transgressions that have taken place on its sacred grounds." As Mr. Stevens walked away from Timothy, the sky began to tremble and a seam in the fabric of reality split open. Mad chittering screeches poured out from the void as the Dementolich emerged from its realm of judgment and chaos. The young boy looked into the creature's psychotic eyes and realized he was staring into forever. And the unfiltered well of eternity was staring back into him. And Timothy's mind began splintering into shards of misfiring synapses. Timothy's psychotic screams were drowned out by the shrieks of the Dementolich as it dragged him away to be woven into the walls of the living flesh kingdom where the boy would reside for eternity. A moment later, there was silence. Susie and the other children quietly looked around at each other, trying to process what had just happened. But Mr. Stevens just smiled, picked up his guitar, and they sang. "All is right within the woods, the sky is bright and sunny, flowers bloom beneath the trees while bees are making honey. It's a magical day out in the woods, so much to do and see. We'll chase butterflies and sing a song, if you will come with me." The end. Well, I hope that you enjoyed the story and you understood the message that I was trying to convey. But for some of you who are not as deep and philosophical as my other subscribers, the message was probably don't send your kids out in the woods with a strange man who enjoys being alone with kids in the woods. This story was originally going to be included in a much larger book that I'm working on right now called The Liverwurst Tree, it's a poem book, kind of in the same vein as Shel Silverstein or Tim Burton's The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy. I've been working on it for a while now, about, I think, 2 years. So I've put some work into it. And I'm not sure when it's going to be released. I'm currently re-illustrating the entire book. I'm about a quarter of the way through, but it's moving fairly quickly. I'm hoping to release it this year. I've said that for the past 2 years, but I'm really hoping to release it this year and release it as a physical book. It's mostly just a collection of silly illustrated limericks, but there's a few more serious poems scattered throughout. As for Mr. Stevens' Magical Sing-Along Forest, I'm also wanting to release that as a physical book. I just need to get it printed. And to learn more about that, you can follow me on Instagram, where I will have details on how you can acquire a physical copy very soon. What else happened this week? I've got another long-term project that I'm doing with my son. Me and him were talking the other day, and he's always wanted to design video games. He's torn between designing video games and being an engineer when he grows up. You know, he's quite the artist himself. He's always designing these crazy little characters, and I'm actually very impressed. He inspires me quite a bit with his creatures and stuff that he comes up with. But we talked the other day, we homeschool our kids, and I said, what do you think if for homeschool we started designing a video game together? You know, we can add your characters and then come up with the worlds and stuff and just kind of do the concept art. We have no idea how to code or design or render 3D images, but we can't let that hold us back from living our dreams. So we started working on that, and I told him that, you know, if this turns out to look like it's going to be halfway decent, maybe we could do a Kickstarter or some sort of crowdfunding and look for a developer who would be interested in bringing our artwork to life. And we don't have a whole lot at the moment, just some rough maps and rough character designs, but it's been a lot of fun. And I think we've landed on doing a side-scroller, Donkey Kong Country style side-scrolling game with decent music, decent artwork, and hopefully a lot of lore, because I love lore games. And Gage likes lore. He's always telling me the lore of these games. Like Five Nights at Freddy's, I thought was just a game for your phone, but he's constantly telling me like all these crazy background stories and stuff, and he wants to bring that into our game. So I'm excited about it. And man, as much as I love all of the like Skyrim, Fallout, Destiny, and stuff like that, I miss side scrollers. They were so much fun. Just simple. Like, I know they still make side scrollers, but too many of them have like too many crazy elements to them now. Like, I miss the just run, jump, attack, and keep moving tactics of like Donkey Kong, Super Mario, and Kirby games. If we make this game, I want to keep the controls as simple as possible, but create an atmosphere with the artwork and music that just hypnotizes the player. Because the things that I remember most about video games is the music a lot of the time, and all of the like background artwork. That's always been something that draws me in. My favorite side-scrolling game of all time, games actually, all three of them, was the Donkey Kong Country trilogy. And I think that a big part of their success was the music score by David Weiss. I still will listen to the soundtrack to the Donkey Kong Country games whenever I'm working on artwork sometimes. Anyway, I'll try to keep you guys updated on the video game and the Liverwurst Tree as I progress through that. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I got this week. I feel like this was a very short video, but I appreciate you all. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week. See ya.